and spend it on our infrastructure, which means you're going to be hiring middle-income people. Those middle-income people are going to spend all the money that they make, and that's going to drive the economy, and then it actually puts money in the pockets of rich people also, and it pulls the poor out of poverty because they move from being in poverty to middle class.
Right. Yep. All excellent.
So everything.
Go ahead.
Yeah. All of it is excellent, and it all moves towards making the economy more efficient.
There you go.
And it's the opposite of what Republicans do.
Yep. Yeah. Larry, always bring the numbers. Thank you so much. It's great talking to you, and I hope you have a wonderful weekend. We'll be back on the other side of this break with your calls. It's the Thom Hartmann Program, the place where despair is not an option. I'll be back with your calls right after this.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit ThomHartmann.com for audio and video archives.
Speaking the truth, the Medicare Advantage providers would really rather you didn't know. I'll be right back with you. I have a heartfelt reason to support my blood pressure. In fact, more than half of the U.S. population would benefit from blood pressure support, and that includes me. I've had high blood pressure for years. Super Beets Heart Chews are an easy and convenient way to support healthy blood pressure, and they promote heart-healthy energy. Paired with a healthy lifestyle, the antioxidants in Super Beets are clinically shown to be nearly 2 times more effective at promoting normal blood pressure than a healthy lifestyle alone. And with over 30,000 5-star reviews and counting, Super Beets Heart Chews are having their moment. Having taken Super Beets Heart Chews daily for years now, I know I'm doing something right for myself every day. They're right next to my bedside. Every night at bedtime, I take one. I feel like I'm helping my heart every night. They're effective and clinically studied. Super Beets is the #1 pharmacist-recommended beet brand for cardiovascular health support. It's blood pressure support you can trust. Double your potential with Super Beets Heart Chews. Get a free 30-day supply of Super Beets Heart Chews and 15% off your first order by going to getsuperbeets.com and using the promo code TOM. That's getsuperbeets.com, code TOM. Hey friends, Thom Hartmann here to tell you about my brand new book. It's called The Thom Hartmann Reader. Thom Hartmann Reader is unlike any of my other books. It's a collection of my best and most revealing writings that I think you need to know. Thom Hartmann Reader covers everything from my fierce commitment to Jeffersonian democracy to my steadfast opposition to the corporatization of America. Also, it more clearly identifies the root cause of so many of our social and environmental ills. The Thom Hartmann Reader will give you essential information and explore solutions to questions like, how do we keep our schools from treating children like assembly line products? Why is it that attention deficit disorder is not an affliction? Or what cloudy Germany can teach us about solar energy? And much, much more. Not only will you gain vital substance on a wide range of topics in the book, but the Thom Hartmann Reader will inspire you to action. It's time to educate ourselves on the world around us, why it got this way, and the corrective actions we all need to take. The Thom Hartmann Reader, available in fine bookstores everywhere and on our website at ThomHartmann.com. Makes a great gift, too. Inspiration, insight, and action. The Thom Hartmann Reader.
One goat can make the difference between nourishment and hunger. One goat can make the difference between poverty and sustained income. In the war-torn areas of southern Sudan, one goat can make the difference between life and death. Find out how you can help. Visit goatsfortheoldgoat.org. That's goats, F-O-R, theoldgoat.org. Fighting hunger, one goat at a time.
Happy anniversary, honey.
Oh, you shouldn't have. Wait, is that a goat?
Goats make a great gift, but maybe not for her. Go to goatsfortheoldgoat.com to give a goat and end hunger in South Sudan. Goats provide food, milk, and give Sudanese families the safety net to pursue education or set up a small business. They really are the gifts that keep on giving. So, do you like it? Goatsfortheoldgoat.com.
If something's wrong with your computer, you reboot it. You restore it back to where it needs to be. Today, our country is headed down the wrong track, overwhelmed with joblessness, declining wages, and corporations deciding our elections for starters. This is not the Founding Fathers' vision. It's time we rebooted something bigger than our computers. It's time we rebooted the American dream. We must restore the thriving, prosperous days we once had. And my new book, Rebooting the American Dream, explains exactly what we need to do. Bringing our jobs and manufacturing home, rolling back the Reagan tax cuts, ending corporate personhood, and educating our electorate are part of the simple 11-step plan in rebooting the American dream that we can start today to rebuild our country. Check out Rebooting the American Dream in bookstores everywhere and online at TomHartman.com. We can recover the American dream we lost 30 years ago to Reaganomics and the Reagan-Bush-Clinton-Bush era. We're all in this together. Please check out Rebooting the American Dream by yours truly, Thom Hartmann, in bookstores everywhere and online at TomHartman.com. Hey, thanks so much for sharing our program and for reaching out to our stations and sponsors and letting them know that you're listening. It really means a lot to us. Welcome back. Picking up your calls here on Anything Goes Friday. Rich in Indianapolis. Hey, Rich, what's on your mind today?
Hey, Tom. Thanks a lot. You are having some amazing callers. I don't think that I have anything that can do as well. I'm just going to try.
It's been a great day, hasn't it?
Greedflation. Yeah. Oh, greedflation is something that we need to have as front of mind. And it has everything to do with, as Jerome Powell is saying, that he's adjusting the levers, et cetera, to get the inflation down. But he's got pushback. And it's really awesome how United Auto Workers has worked so efficiently and well as they've negotiated. And proof of that is, I believe, in Tennessee with, no, it may be Kentucky with Toyota. And Toyota has just upped $9 an hour for its top workers in order to keep pace with the efficiency and reform that is happening through United Auto Workers work. There it is, the wage floor being proven as the value created with organized labor of the union. Well, the thing that happened with Yellow Freight, you may recall that I said, wouldn't it be cool if Yellow Freight went co-op? And Yellow Freight took its toys and left, and all those people that were driving for them, which were Teamsters, union jobs, were suddenly scrambling, trying to get stuff. And son of a gun, those guys were blackballed.
Yeah.
We have a shortage of jobs, a shortage of drivers with more than enough jobs for all these drivers, and they didn't want Teamsters.
Didn't they end up going bankrupt?
Non-union shops.
Right. Didn't they end up going bankrupt, Eric? Yellow Freight?
Yeah, Yellow Freight quit.
Yeah,
they
that's
said,
what I thought.
We're out. Well, here's something to think about. Uline Trucking. Uline is the guy's last name.
He's the billionaire who funds all the Republicans all around the country.
And the idea that there is this giant trucking firm, non-union, run by this right-wing super donor, and he's not picking up anybody from Yellow Freight, and the producer price index has to go up when the cost of shipping goes up. And the cost of shipping goes up when Yellow Freight, the less than load
This is Democracy Now!
This is an official state document essentially recommending the government to carry out an ethnic cleansing of Gaza. And it has been written in a time when these ideas are making their way into the Israeli mainstream public discourse and to Israeli media.
As the death toll from Israel's bombardment of Gaza tops 9,200, one Israeli government ministry is recommending the forcible transfer of the entire population of Gaza to Egypt. We'll speak to an Israeli journalist who helped expose the story. Then, as Secretary of State Tony Blinken visits Israel, we'll speak to Josh Paul. He recently resigned from his high-level State Department job where he oversaw arms transfers to Israel and other foreign nations.
I resigned from the State Department 2 weeks ago because I believe that U.S. arms should never be used to commit gross violations of human rights or contribute to civilian casualties, and we know that's what's happening in Gaza today. I also resigned because I believe that for 20 years we've pursued a dead-end policy which has not led to security for Palestinians or for Israelis. But when I tried to raise these issues within the State Department, there was absolutely no appetite for any debate.
Plus, we go to Boston, where 23 people were arrested Thursday as hundreds of faith leaders and clergy rallied to demand a ceasefire in Gaza. All that and more coming up. Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. Israel's army says it's encircled Gaza City as international condemnation continues to grow over its 28-day assault on the besieged Palestinian territory, where more than 9,200 people have been killed, including at least 3,800 children. Among the dead and injured are Palestinians sheltering at a United Nations-run school in the Jabalia refugee camp, where at least 27 were killed in an Israeli strike Thursday.
Nowhere is safe. They even hit the school. They said flee to the schools. They then targeted the schools. Where are the Arab leaders?
A group of 7 senior United Nations human rights experts warned Thursday, quote, time is running out to prevent genocide and humanitarian catastrophe, unquote. The Palestine news agency reports journalist Mohammed Abu Hattab was killed in an Israeli strike on his home in the southern Gaza Strip on Thursday, along with 11 members of his family, including his wife, son, and brother. Abu Hattab was a reporter for Palestine TV. His last on-air report was about deadly Israeli airstrikes in and around his neighborhood in Khan Yunis. His colleague, journalist Salman al-Bashir, burst into tears during a live broadcast upon learning of Abu Hattab's killing. As he spoke, al-Bashir tore off his helmet and protective vest labeled press and threw them to the ground.
These are just slogans that we are wearing. They don't protect any journalists at all. These shields don't protect us. We are victims, directly on live television. We are losing souls, one by one, with complete impunity.
Salman al-Bashir tore off his press gear, and the anchor who was talking to him also wept. According to the Committee to Protect Journalists, at least 36 reporters and media workers have been killed since the conflict erupted on October 7th. Israeli forces killed at least 9 more Palestinians during overnight raids in the occupied West Bank. One of the victims, Eham al-Shafeh, was just 14 years old. Separately, another 14-year-old named Hamdan Omar Hamdan died Thursday of injuries sustained earlier this week from Israeli army gunfire. Elsewhere, settlers have attacked Palestinian homes and stores in the town of Deir Sharaf, west of Nablus. The UN's Humanitarian Affairs Office warns vigilante-style settler attacks have killed 29 people across the West Bank this year. 145 West Bank Palestinians have been killed in Israeli attacks since October 7th. In Lebanon, Hezbollah fighters launched simultaneous attacks on 19 Israeli positions along Israel's border on Thursday, prompting Israel to respond with warplanes, helicopter gunships, artillery, and tank fire. At least 2 people in the Israeli town of Kiryat Shmona were wounded in the exchange of fire, the largest skirmish since Hamas's October 7th attack. The cross-border violence came as Hezbollah's leader Hassan Nasrallah is set to make his first public remarks today on Israel's assault on Gaza.
Mary had a little man.
We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream. Change has come to America.
Believe me.
Help is on the way.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show.
Turn up your mind.
Secretary Blinken arrived in Israel on a mission to slow this war down, pushing for humanitarian pauses to allow more aid into Gaza buy time to free hostages held by Hamas, and for cooler heads to emerge. The timing is critical. The Israeli military says its forces have finished encircling Gaza City and are in street battles. A push into the city could be extraordinarily violent. Israel is already losing troops and has outlined no clear exit strategy or long-term plan. In Gaza, Hamas seems happy to pull Israel into a long-term guerrilla war, no matter what the consequences for the people of Gaza. Our crew watched as Abu Abdullah returned to the Jabalia refugee camp, poor and crowded before the war, and now being flattened by Israeli strikes. He came to apologize to his family under the rubble, that he couldn't do more to help them. I'm sorry I couldn't help you, he says. He adds a prayer and says to God, I can't take it anymore. After hours of digging, one daughter, 12-year-old Lian, is found. He begs people to look for his youngest son, Aboud, who he'd promised to send to nursery school. He keeps apologizing to Lian as he carries her back to neighbors, so he can search for his other daughter, 3 sons, and wife. No one was found alive. Anger, rage, and hopelessness help Hamas recruit in Gaza. There's rage across Israel, too, after Hamas butchered 1,400 Israelis and took more than 240 hostages, including the disabled and children. According to human rights groups and the UN, extremist Jewish settlers in the West Bank are taking advantage of the war to attack Palestinians to take their land. Eliana and Khalil Basir were collecting olives in the West Bank. He's 77, she's 69. They're Christians. The couple says Jewish settlers last week attacked them without provocation. Khalil told me one of the settlers grabbed him in the groin. He was then hit repeatedly with a heavy stick. Khalil never called the police. They don't do anything, he says. They don't even answer.
A new UN report said that settler violence has increased significantly since the October 7th attack, and that in nearly half the cases, Israeli security forces supported or accompanied the attackers.
Therein lies the dilemma. You got a right-wing government in Israel, you got a terrorist government in Gaza, and this is what it looks like, everybody. This is what it looks like. Who you choose actually matters. The West Bank, if I have to say it every single day, then I will. The West Bank is a horror show, and Netanyahu is responsible for this horror. He is. He could be using the West Bank as an example of coexistence. He could be pointing to the West Bank and saying, see, this is what a two-state solution could look like, feel like, smell like. This is how it could, be like for children, for elderly, for seniors who have counted on people like me making the peace for 75 freaking years. Oh, but oh no. You have to understand who Netanyahu is. He's Trump. And I can't say it enough. It was actually, I've been saying this for so long that now newspaper articles are finally being written about how you should think about Netanyahu as Trump. Yeah. People who do not value other people's hopes and dreams and aspirations. People who actually only value themselves and use government for their own protection. This is exactly the hands that this, country is in over there. And this is exactly who Americans want to be, in control here. It won't turn out well, okay? You understand that? And this entire thing is being designed and deployed by people who would wish us harm, by people who hate us. It is Russia. It is Iran. It is exterminators. It is people who literally don't give a damn about any living, breathing thing that is Western, okay? The idea that this, now I'm reading articles that go, is this Putin's century? What? No, people are actually asking, is this his century? I mean, it's shocking. It's horrible. So you have to understand that the right wing of the world is acting against all people, anybody who has hopes and dreams. Now, Netanyahu, I really would love for you to familiarize yourself with who he is and what he's done and what he wants and what party he's with. And, from the very earliest days when he became the head of the Likud party, which is the right wing in Israel, we used to have, here we used to have, a Democratic Party and a Conservative Party and a independent, whatever. Israel used to have a very, very fulsome, let's just say, progressive, a party. The Labor Party, it's almost non-existent at this point. It doesn't even have, representation in the vast parliamentary system that is their system of governance, right? What you have there is the ultra right wing and then the medium right wing. It's just like the Republican Party. You got the maggots and then you've got people who are actually getting pissed at Tuberville. Do you know what I'm saying? And they're not exactly Democrats. They're right wing, they're Republicans, but they're starting to see that Tuberville is an idiot that needs to be called out. Why? Because the world is on fire and he is literally standing in the way of military promotions that people have earned. And it's going to, one guy, the commandant of the Marines, you probably know this, right? That this week, I think it was, Friday, Thursday, it was Wednesday, I think, that it was in the paper that the acting commandant of the Marines had a heart attack. Because he's, fit as a fiddle, man. The guy looks good, right? Obviously. But he's doing like 2 and 3 jobs now because he has no deputy and they won't confirm and they have no, a permanent. Because of Tuberville. Because of a freaking Alabama football coach who never served in the military. But he knows best. I mean, it's really sick and it's really twisted. And so, finally, the Republicans started to say to his face, you're an impediment. You're an impediment to national security. We don't know what the F your game is, but whatever it is, quit playing it. And I just have this sick suspicion that they're playing McConnell's game. And it's interesting because McConnell is against his own game now, right? McConnell doesn't want, positions held open pending a Trump return, the way that McConnell held open a Supreme Court seat pending a Republican presidency during the Obama years, right? I guess he sees the error of his ways. Or maybe he only likes it when he does it because he feels like he's the only person smart enough to actually do it right so that, he can get what he wants. I mean, it's very sick. It's very sad. But Tuberville's got this big blockade on military promotions right now. And finally, the right wing is starting to, get really pissed. They're starting to say, well, what is the purpose? What is the end game? And nobody in the media wants to tell you what I just said. Nobody in the media wants to speculate that the reason is because they want a military loyal to Donald. They want a military that will follow Donald Trump's orders even if they violate the laws of war. When I tell you that Netanyahu is Trump, I'm not kidding. And when you see how brutal it looks over there and how there's no regard even for the PR, not the press, but the PR, no regard at all for sentiment turning against Israel, sentiment turning against, in the wider world, Jews. Netanyahu doesn't give a damn about any of the repercussions of what we're seeing on the TV. But I do. And you know who else does? Joe Biden. Anthony Blinken. Got on a plane. He's back in Israel today to tell them, okay, maybe we do need to pause because the way that you're doing this matters. And the way that you're doing this isn't good. It's dangerous.
Clear for takeoff. Randi Rhodes. RandiRhodes.com.
The Bob Cesca Show.
Bob Cesca.
The thing that we don't often talk about in the context of the treason that took place on January 6th is the basic fact, and this is kind of an obvious thing to say, but every single one of those insurrectionists were fooled were suckered by the most obvious liar in the history of public liars in this country or in human civilization in its entirety.
But it's not just him. He has a huge satellite network of people boosting him.
That's
the thing.
true.
Like, he's a terrible liar, but then you throw in the Hannitys and the Tucker
all the
Carlsons
Fox
and,
News,
and all just like the AM radio, and it's like the message reinforcement juju on the right is strong.
Yeah.
Like they get their talking points off the fax machine from the dead, like, what's his first name? Roger Ailes. Yeah, the ghost of Roger Ailes sends the fax every morning with their keywords and talking points, and off they go like little robots. And Trump can do the most stupid innate, like, he can drag a piece of toilet paper on his heel all the way up the stairs to Air Force One, but his fans will never see it. They are completely sealed into their little fascist bubble. And it doesn't matter if he's a good liar,
right?
Because he's got millions of liars who reinforce him.
Yeah, exactly. Well, this is ultimately the things that caused the insurrection to take place were generated out of Donald Trump's worm-infested brain. So, like, how do I frame myself as the winner of this election? Here are the things I'm going to make up. And then all of these people went, well, that sounds about right. Let's go with that.
God damn it.
And so it's no wonder that a lot of them will be voting
Those
for
are the
someone
people
like
that
RFK.
scare me. Like, 'cause, like 10 years ago, they were your friends.
Right.
And then suddenly, the pandemic they snapped.
Yeah,
And they went, like, it's...
Bob Cesca.
It's the Bob Cesca Show. New episodes every Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, everywhere you get your podcasts, and at bobcescashow.com.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1909. That was the day members of the industrial workers of the world began a free speech fight in Spokane, Washington. Wobblies often intersected seasonal workers through street corner soapboxing. Many towns and cities worked to resist IWW organizing efforts by passing ordinances against such rallies. Wobblies challenged these repressive tactics. They would descend on a town or city in great numbers, forcing mass arrests that overwhelmed local authorities and judicial systems. At Spokane, the organizing campaign began a year earlier. Wobblies mobilized against local employment agencies that charged workers fees for jobs that didn't exist. The campaign was so popular that the IWW was able to establish a union hall, hold meetings and lectures, and establish a newspaper. The Spokane City Council quickly passed an ordinance against street corner rallies. When Wobblies learned that religious groups were exempt from the restrictive ordinance, they announced November 2nd as Free Speech Day in Spokane. They put out the call, wanted men to fill the jails of Spokane. By the end of the month, as many as 500 had been arrested. The War Department even offered up nearby Fort Wright to handle the glut of prisoners. A young Elizabeth Gurley Flynn arrived in Spokane to soapbox. Efforts to arrest her were briefly frustrated after she chained herself to a nearby lamppost. Flynn made good use of her time in jail. She reported on appalling prison conditions and accused the local sheriff of operating a brothel out of the women's prison section. The free speech fight gained nationwide attention and enjoyed wide public support. By March, all prisoners were released, the ordinance had been rescinded, and employment agencies' license revoked. The IWW won big.
Don't give up.
All things Randi at RandiRhodes.com.
Yeah. Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
Growing outrage over Senator Tommy Tuberville's unprecedented blockade of promotions for hundreds of senior military officers.
I hate to have to do this, but somebody has got to listen to us, okay?
For the past 9 months, the Alabama Republican has refused to allow speedy confirmation votes on more than 350 promotions, unless the Pentagon reverses its abortion policy. It provides time off and travel expenses to service members who have to seek abortions out of state. The political move now triggering a bipartisan backlash.
Patience is wearing thin on both sides of the aisle over the senator's antics.
Culminating in a Senate floor fight Wednesday, as Republicans tried to pass 60 military promotions one by one, with Tuberville blocking all of them.
If this is the norm, who the hell wants to serve in the military when your promotion can be canned based on something you had nothing to do with.
Even with wars raging in the Middle East and Ukraine, Tuberville remains defiant.
If I thought there was any problem with readiness, we wouldn't be doing this.
But his blockade is having an impact on military families. The Commandant of the Marine Corps, General Eric Smith, suffered a heart attack this week while doing the job of 2 different officers.
Great.
Senate Armed Service Committee Chairman Jack Reed told Politico he thought Smith's workload contributed to his hospitalization. But Tuberville dismissed that, comparing the general's duties to his old job as Auburn's football coach.
Come on, give me a break. This guy's going to work 18, 20 hours a day no matter what. That's what we do. You know, I did that for years.
Still, for those officers in limbo, the delay is agonizing. Kate Marsh-Lord, a military spouse, advocates for military families.
Families have been serving for literally decades, and this is the first time where they are being used as political pawns.
Now, Senate rules and tradition allow for any one senator to slow the process of voting down substantially, but no one has ever dragged out what are normally non-controversial votes like these for this long. The Senate can vote on these promotions one by one. In fact, they passed 3 of them yesterday, but it would take months of doing only that on the Senate floor to clear this backlog. Now, a growing number of senators are debating changing the rules entirely to go around Tuberville and end this blockade.
You think? You think we need to change a rule or two to go around Tuberville, who's been doing this for, 9 months or some crazy amount of time? I mean, this is so sick and sad, and using the military as a political pawn in his abortion, issue. He's got a problem. He's got a problem with women. He's got a problem with misogyny. He's got a problem with wanting to control. They're not going to be happy until we actually look like over there, and they start telling us, well, America has a very young population. Half of them are children, because we're trying not to go extinct. I mean, honestly.
How dare he compare coaching a mediocre SEC team to the strategic defense of this country? That is crazy.
Not even Bobby Knight could get away with that crap.
R.I.P.
Yeah. R.I.P. Bobby. R.I.P. Throw a chair. Throw a chair, everybody, this weekend.
For
Bobby. Yeah, remember Bobby. Bobby. Yeah, Bobby Knight died. What was he, 83? He probably could have made it to 93 if he just would have kept his blood pressure, below 190. But no, hell no. He was just irate all the time. Remember Bobby Knight, right? But anyway, Tuberville, comparing himself to the Commandant of the Marines. The nerve of it's so amazing that here you are, a football coach for a university football team in Alabama, and you think that it's comparable to Commandant of the Marines, who's in charge of, hundreds of thousands of lives every single freaking day. And not just lives, but, whether or not they get paid, whether or not, I don't even think, that he had to worry about his players getting paid, did he? It wasn't even payroll isn't even a thing.
I mean, it kind of was.
It's not.
It just wasn't officially a thing.
Yeah, right. I get you. I get you. I feel you. But people are losing their minds now because they're starting to realize that the minority in this country is tyrannical. Well, where have you been? Right-wing lunatics do these things, and we're going to end up looking just like over there if we don't wake up and realize that the right-wing lunatics of this world, the Putins and the Netanyahus and the Nasrallah. I mean, really, is that a thing? They actually, honestly, today, don't go on social media. It's so bad. It is so offensive. It is so disgusting what is amplified by the algorithm now. What is getting like massive distribution is like a terrorist group's leader goes on TV and doesn't say whether or not he's going to deploy the Hezbollah. Okay, it's like in The Wizard of Oz. The Wicked Witch of the West, she's got the flying monkeys. It's like that's Hezbollah. We used to have a caller. We used to call her Hezbollah lady. She used to call up Neil Rogers back in the day, and she would just scream, Hezbollah! Okay. But they actually, like promoted the head of a terrorist organization talking today to the point where it was trending on social media. It is really creepy, like how much emphasis is being put on terrorist groups right now as being, I don't know, the great Princess Leia types, right? Now all of a sudden they're the resistance. Please spare me. If you find yourself mutilating children and filming it, you are not on the side of what's right and good about this world. And the right wing is desperately trying to peel the left wing, to tear the left wing apart. There's no question in my mind that this kind of attack on the Democrats all over the world is something Netanyahu knows a little bit about. It's what he was able to do. When he first started being Netanyahu, like in the early 90s, right? It was because, somebody from the right-wing Likud party, some real radical, lunatic, fringy dude, committed an assassination. And, it's interesting because when Begin was assassinated, when Rabin was assassinated, right before the assassination, apparently the intelligence in Israel had gone to Benjamin Netanyahu, who was the head of the right wing there, the Likud party, and said to him, you better tone your rhetoric down because somebody's going to get killed. Isn't that exactly what the right wing had to tell you in Georgia? That, this has got to stop. Somebody's going to get shot. Somebody's going to get killed. You remember that? Gabe Sterling had to get on the TV and tell him, pull it back. Somebody's going to get hurt. Somebody's going to get shot. Somebody's going to get killed. Well, that apparently the intelligence in Israel, I guess it was Bet Shane, who is like the FBI there, went and talked to him and said to him, if you don't stop what you're doing, somebody's going to get killed. And a right-wing lunatic actually did assassinate Rabin. Why? Because of the Oslo Accords. What was that? A two-state solution. And Netanyahu would never, ever make peace. Ever. He would do everything and anything to stop peace. That's why the West Bank is a horror show. Because of him. Now, Gaza is a horror show because of Hamas.
Clear for takeoff. Randi Rhodes. RandiRhodes.com.
This is Stephanie Miller, and here's what you missed. It is everything they try to do. First of all, they're just trying to divide people, like no money for Ukraine, but we'll give money for Israel. And there you go. They try to do this in we're going to cut spending at the IRS, which, of course, is just, as you said, a gift to their billionaire tax cheat donors. And boom, it adds to the deficit, right?
Yeah, the whole thing, it adds about $27 billion to the deficit over the next decade. So they want to spend $27 billion to give Israel 14.
Right. Right. It's Republican math. Can I just say, I saved this tweet for you because it's just, there's only so few people calling it out, but thank God Lincoln Project said, we're at an inflection point in history. Trump and the MAGA GOP want to return the favor to Putin for his election interference. POTUS and the Democrats want to uphold freedom and democracy. Will we emulate Chamberlain, or will we stand strong against a monstrous dictator? Thank you. I'm glad, you've been calling this out ever since the beginning of Mueller, she wrote. This is Putin's party now.
Yeah, that's the Russia hoax we keep hearing all about.
Yeah, we've heard so much about. Yeah. Right. But I mean, on cue, we find about funding to Mike Johnson's campaign from Russia, right?
Yep, right on cue. And I'm sure we'll see more. And this is nothing more than a call out to please help us in 2024. So,
which he will. I mean, are you concerned about that, Allison? If the stakes, if possible, are even higher for Putin. I mean, basically, Trump has come out and said, get out of NATO, won't protect you if Russia attacks you. He can have Ukraine. I mean, it couldn't be a bigger wish list for Putin, right?
Oh, absolutely. To pull out of NATO, I mean, that was going to be his second-term plan. That's why Russia didn't invade Ukraine when he was president, is because he was going to give it to him.
Hear all this and more on the next Stephanie Miller Show.
Decades of leadership, a lifetime of experience, and rock-solid determination to rebuild America. Joe Biden's plan for America's economic comeback is working. The highest job growth in the world. Inflation coming down faster than any other major nation. The prices families pay for everything from gas to groceries falling fast. Hope and optimism coming back. His tireless work to build a stronger America means we're respected again. And a respected America is a safer America. Joe Biden's years have taught him leadership, wisdom, toughness, how to ignore the noise and focus on the people. He's a president for every American, making the hard decisions with compassion, heart, and respect. That's Joe Biden, America's president.
For Progressive Voices, I'm John Sinton, and this is a turning point. Today, heroes and zeros. Let's start with a hero. The late, great Congresswoman Pat Schroeder, the Democrat from reality, knew where she was and what she was dealing with when she famously said, "Please don't tell my mother I'm in Congress. She thinks I'm a prostitute." How about zeros? Well, at the most dangerous inflection point of the post-World War II order, we point to the long leaderless House of Representatives that stalled and was unable to address the nation's most pressing business. For a moment, it seemed like the squishes, or moderate Republicans, would hold the line against promoting an election denier, but no dice. They voted unanimously for MAGA Mike Johnson, as the former guy calls him. You know, disruption is less a bug than a feature.
Call in, connect. To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844. 561-270-3844.
Okay, so this is Republican Senator Dan Sullivan screaming about his colleague, idiot boy Tuberville.
I want the American people to know right now 376 promotions to 1, 2, 3, and 4-star generals and admirals are being held. It is estimated by the end of this year, 89% of all general officer positions in the United States military will be affected by the current holds from Senator Tuberville. Either our members have to be forced to retire, positions not filled, an acting capacity will be unable to retire. This is pretty much the entire officer corps.
Now, what Mr. Dan Sullivan, who is a Republican from Arkansas, isn't going to say, if I let the whole floor speech play, is why. And no one in the media has a philosophy or an idea about why we would want to see 89% of the very top of the military, those positions be left unfilled, or people forced to retire and then leave those positions open pending a new election. Fascinating, ain't it? Ain't it? If you think that it can't happen here, you better open your eyes and see who's running this this freak show of war, because it isn't Labor Party people and it's not Democrats. Okay, it's not it's not anybody but the right wing. It is, and Putin. If you look at the way that Netanyahu is fighting, I don't know, this might ring a bell for some of you who really do pay attention, like you take the New York Times weekly quiz and you get them all right, like that kind of a person, So what Netanyahu is doing in the West Bank is he is encircling, right? He said, we are at the gates of Gaza. Okay. We're at the gate. If there are gates to Gaza, then they're the only things left standing, okay, because it's northern, and that's where Israel has the gates, right? But no, all kidding aside, they are circling Gaza City. They've encircled it. Now, that is a tactic. It's a strategy. It's a military strategy. Why would you encircle a city? Why would you do that? You do that because that means no one can leave the city. Reinforcements and supplies can't come into the city, right? Reinforcements and supplies can't come in. You are all around it, and so they don't even know inside the city where you'll begin the attack. Will it be from the north, the south, the east, or the west? Doesn't, it's up to you. You can choose because you're encircling an entire city. You know what that feels so familiar, why that feels so familiar to you, and that you may understand the encirclement technique, the strategy of it? Right, Ukraine, Bakhmut. Remember that? Except Bakhmut, when they encircled that particular city, Russia did, it had no strategic value whatsoever. Bakhmut, everybody was telling you why. They were wondering, why is Putin doing this? There is no benefit to him to take this city. There's nothing there. They don't have ports. They don't have, production. They don't have, why? Why? He was doing it just to deplete them. He was doing it to get them to shoot all their ammunition and to, blow through all of their artillery shells, just to, kill all the soldiers, have no resistance at the end, because the city there had absolutely no strategic value whatsoever if you conquered that land. Now, Gaza City, different thing. That is the home of Hamas. Okay, it is. It's Hamas's command center, which they built below those people's houses. Now, I don't know how you would live in a house and not know that your basement was full of terrorists. I don't know. I'll leave that aside. You can figure that one out on your own.
Look, I'm not in the Gaza Strip, and I think there's terrorists below me. I mean, sounds like it every weekend.
Oh, at your apartment?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, if they start stockpiling ammunition and they start stockpiling fuel.
Right now, they're just stockpiling copious amounts of very strong marijuana. That's all I've got evidence of right now.
So breathe deep, my friend. It's free.
I really only brought this up to thank them if they're listening.
Yeah, right. I mean, let's not pretend we don't know you. We know you. But yeah. So I honestly, that is why. So there is a strategic value to encircling Gaza City. There was none in the Russian Bakhmut encirclement, right? There was no value to it at all, except to deplete all shells and ammunition and soldiers, just to kill them all, right? Didn't work, but it was brutal. It was really brutal. And for some reason, we didn't get the kind of news coverage about that we do about this. It's really kind of fascinating. And something tells me that there is a reason. There is a reason for that. In fact, if you read around a little bit, you might learn that some of the people wearing press vests, the blue ones, the blue press vests with the blue helmets, who are posing as journalists really are working for Hamas. And that people are just taking what they're saying as a face value, and nobody's questioning anything. I think that, some of the reports that you're seeing where the people wearing the blue press vests and the helmets who are throwing them down and crying and screaming and saying we're not being protected, we're being sacrificed, I think that their comments are directed at Hamas because they work for Hamas and still their families were killed. You see what I mean? And there's some careless, dissemination of this information without context going on. One of the women that lost her whole family. She was holding her son. The images are they're horrendous. It's the most brutal, inhumane slaughter that you'll ever know, and that's called war. But there was a woman, and she was holding her son, and she screamed in Arabic at the camera, "This is the result of those Hamas dogs. They did this." But, you'll never know that unless you have a friend who speaks Arabic who can translate it for you. Yeah. So it's an interesting time we live in. But however, the fog of war is what they'll call it. But the social media crap, the idea that there's a very strong, left-wing defense of a terrorist organization now in our country is really bizarre. And watching social media favor, the leader of Hezbollah, which is also a terrorist organization in southern Lebanon, watching them, pay attention to his every word. Meanwhile, he's a chicken crap, okay, because he wouldn't commit one way or the other. Whether he was going in, whether he was going to deploy, whether his terrorist group had enough. No, didn't say. But I just want you to know that when Netanyahu is meeting with Vladimir Putin and they're becoming best friends, and when Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin are becoming best friends, right? And when Hamas is meeting with Vladimir Putin and they're becoming best friends, and when Iran, the Ayatollah in Iran and Assad in Syria are hanging out with Putin and they're all becoming best friends, trust me, it isn't because they have, the good of, humankind in mind. It's not because they want to stop the bloodshed. No, it isn't.
Clear for takeoff.
The GDP is out. I want to get right now to Jerry Willis and get that breaking news. Jerry.
Yeah, Maria, that's right. We've got GDP at 4.9%. That is the first read on third quarter GDP. That is a surprise on the upside. You can see that's a big positive number. Look at this. 4.9% is well over twice second quarter GDP, which was 2.1%. So you can see some really strong expansion here for the quarter. This quarter, of course, July to September, GDP, the broadest read on economic growth. But wow, what a stunner. Actual coming in at 4.9%. Oh!
The office of Speaker of the House of the United States House of Representatives is hereby declared vacant.
You all know Matt Gaetz. You know it was personal.
One of the greatest acts of heresy that I've seen in a while.
I thought it was unfair to Kevin.
Nothing like this ever happened when Nancy Pelosi was in charge.
And I think it's disgraceful, and I hope they expel him from the conference.
I think there needs to be a reckoning within the conference.
It's an astonishingly destructive behavior by a handful of egocentric people.
I have never seen anything so malicious.
Those 8 people were anarchists, and they're Chaos Caucus members.
You're going to get a week or 10 days of the media focusing on Republican disarray.
The Republican Party today just can't govern. Nancy Pelosi, with a 5-vote majority, she was able to govern. The Democrats have become the party of discipline, and the Republicans have become the party that lacks discipline.
I'm a conservative, I'm a Republican, I'm a conservative, one gets things done. You don't surrender.
Wrong is just wrong. You know it when you see it.
But it's by Toni Morrison. She won a Nobel Prize for literature.
We know better.
But it's hard to know what to do. Easier to let it go. So you just kick the can down the road.
Please, I didn't do anything wrong. It was a miscarriage.
It's for the courts to decide, man.
Thank you, one clear. Plan is code for 148 North St. Avenue.
Wrong is wrong. But what can you do?
They want you to think slavery was all bad, but slaves learned valuable skills, like being a blacksmith.
That's racist and a lie.
It's in the school curriculum, endorsed by our fine governor.
It's ridiculous. What are you doing? Let go of me. Stop pushing me.
Politicians who lie are manipulating you so they can gain or maintain power, turning families and friends against each other and often leading to violence. Surely you have to do something about that, don't you? Because if you keep kicking the can down the road, eventually you run out of road.
Jews will not replace us! One people, one nation, end immigration, one soil!
Stop! Those are racist and Nazi slogans. Just stop.
Haven't I seen you around town holding hands with another man?
That's none of your business.
I disagree.
Jews will not replace
Please.
One people,
This is America.
One nation, end immigration, one soil!
To help stop MAGA Republican fascism before it's too late. Because the MAGA Republican vision of America is anti-American. Protect your freedom and our democracy by supporting Mission Democracy.
Mission Democracy PAC is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Glad to have the MAGA-packed Supreme Court? Proud that they lied under oath to get the job? If so, thank a MAGA Republican. If you enjoy seeing our rights disappear one by one, thank a MAGA Republican today. The Lincoln Project is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Which is the greenest state in America? You might think California or maybe Oregon. But go 3,000 miles east, and you'll come upon the physical beauty and ecological vitality of the Green Mountain State, Vermont. Indeed, its very name is derived from the French term for green mountains, Vermonts. And now, Vermont's green ethic is being advanced in a very innovative way by perhaps the least.
Don't give up. Don't give up. What's true?
This is the Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
Overnight, relentless Israeli missile strikes in Gaza. Fire and smoke lighting up the night sky as Israel says its troops are now surrounding Gaza City. Amid the death and destruction, Secretary of State Antony Blinken touching back down in Tel Aviv this morning, meeting with Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu and Israel's war cabinet, as the Biden administration urges a humanitarian pause, saying it would allow humanitarian aid to get in and the hostages to get out. But they're not calling for an end to the attacks.
We do not support a ceasefire, and that gives time for Hamas to regroup, which is something that, again, would put Israeli citizens and others in danger.
Nearly 4 weeks in, more than 9,000 civilians have been killed in Gaza, according to the Hamas-run health ministry, as Israel responds to the massacre of more than 1,400 people and the capture of hostages. More than 240 still remain trapped in Gaza, including Americans. And overnight, ABC News learning the US has been flying unarmed Reaper drones above Gaza to help get hostages out. The drones equipped with cameras and sensors that can intercept voice and data communications. And on the ground, Israeli forces advancing. Its troops fighting Hamas in face-to-face combat inside Gaza City. But they're facing rising losses. 23 soldiers killed in action since the ground invasion began a week ago. Fighter jets and warships are backing up the ground offensive, Hamas being targeted by air, sea and land.
We've just heard the sound of a fighter jet dropping its payload into the city. They say that they're targeting Hamas. But also, we know that there are still civilians in there who haven't listened to the order to leave, and many of them continue to die every day.
Now, why is that? Why would people keep their families in there when leaflets were dropped and millions of text messages were sent, directions to safe zones were given? I don't know. I don't know exactly, why people stayed there. I have no idea. But I will tell you right now that the ceasefire idea is not happening, and here's why. Do you really think that you could have diplomacy with Hamas? Yeah, because I don't. I think that if they wanted diplomatic solutions to their problems, Hamas did, I think the first thing they should do, release the hostages. Just saying, that would be a nice goodwill gesture, wouldn't it? Wouldn't that make you serious about wanting peaceful resolution to this? Yeah, but they won't. They're not going to do it. Okay? There's no way that they're releasing an 80-year-old woman or a 3-year-old baby, which is what they got over there. And I love the way our media just, casually sometimes mentions two things. That there are hostages still being held casually. And the other thing that's interesting that they mention is that the numbers are coming from Hamas. They'll call it the Palestinian Health Authority or the Gazan Health Authority. It's Hamas because they're the government there. Okay? That is the government there. In the West Bank, they have different government. They have the Palestinian Authority, but the Palestinian Authority is corrupt, A, and B, Netanyahu is very interested in taking their land and does it every day. It's all right-wing crap. It's all disgusting, and it's all got to stop, and it can't stop now until there's some sort of a resolution that actually includes releasing hostages. Seriously, dude, I don't even know how serious, Netanyahu is about getting the hostages. I have no earthly idea what's going on in his brain. I can just tell you that this guy is a right-wing lunatic, and that this particular version of Israeli government, this particular part of it, it's just like when we had Trump and the whole world was looking at us going, oh my God, what is happening over there? What's happening to America? What is going on over there? Everybody's getting shot in the street. Police are beating civilians. They're literally standing on people's necks for like 8 minutes, looking direct to camera with arrogant, empowerment on their face. What the? Well, that's the way you should be looking at Israel. That's the way you should be looking at Netanyahu's government. Same damn way. Same exact. But, people don't want to look at Netanyahu or his government. They want to look at Israel. A whole state has to be punished because they got this maniac as their leader. This particular version of their government is the most right-wing, extremist version of government anyone in Israel has ever seen. Trust me, no one has ever seen this. And people there want this to stop. They've been protesting him since way before October 7th. They were out on the street night after night, day after day, because they understood what he was doing, and that what he was doing was counter to what the entire majority of the population of Israel wanted. Same thing's happening here. Same thing. Everybody sits there and goes, if 98% of us want background checks, how come we can't get background checks? If 67% or 80% or 70% of America wants women to be left alone in their reproductive lives, why aren't they being left alone in their reproductive lives? It's the same here as it is there. It's just we got a pause. We did. We're having ourselves a little pause because Donald Trump is on trial with his children lying for him on the stand. When your children have to testify for you in a fraud trial that's already been decided, and the decision is, yes, you committed fraud repeatedly and you will never stop committing fraud, to the point where we have to revoke your business certifications so that you cannot do business in New York anymore because you will never, ever be honest. And no one should have to be, subject to your phony numbers and your fake evaluations. Oh, my God. And the boys yesterday, my God, does anybody really believe that Eric Trump, you know what he said in his testimony? He said, he was the one when Donald Trump became president. He had this big dog and pony show, remember, with all the papers and everything, and he signed it all over, and it was going to be in trust, and his boys were going to head up the Trump organization, and they were going to run this beautiful business for Donald Trump, his beautiful family, his great sons were going to. Now all of a sudden, no one knows what was going on, right? Eric Trump goes, I wasn't responsible for reporting, the health of the finances. I mean, I signed off on a lot of things because, I was important, but really what I was doing was pouring concrete. He was pouring concrete, everybody. I honestly, I don't think that he knows how to make concrete. Like, not even enough to make concrete to, put your air conditioning unit on. We all know what I'm talking, right? You've all poured a little bit of concrete in your life, haven't you? He poured concrete. And Junior, he just, laughed through the whole thing. Trump goes on Monday. I bet you he takes the 5th. Yeah. And then Ivanka, this was so beautiful. Ivanka actually had the nerve to tell the court she couldn't testify next week because she has 3 children and no child care. And the court was like, we'll see on Wednesday. I couldn't believe, the nerve of them. And Alina Habba, did you see her yesterday? The children are being persecuted. But she wasn't talking about, war zones. She was talking about Eric and Don Jr.
Donald Trump Jr. and Eric Trump have long lived in their father's shadow. But as executives at the Trump Organization, they are now his co-defendants in a civil fraud trial, entering court together with a thumbs up and a wave on Thursday. On the stand, they faced a grilling. Eric Trump at times growing visibly irritated as the two brothers testified that they were not aware that the documents that they had signed artificially inflated the value of their properties.
You pay experts millions of dollars to be experts. You sign off on what they give you, and you're liable.
Both younger Trumps instead blamed the organization's accountants for preparing those statements.
Mazars.
In a videotaped deposition played in court, Eric Trump denied having any involvement with them at all.
Because I don't think I've ever had any involvement in the statement of financial condition.
But prosecutors then confronted him with internal emails showing that he did know about those statements.
Oh, email.
Raising his voice in anger, Eric Trump responded, "We're a major organization, a massive real estate organization. I am aware we have financial statements in general," but he insisted he did not keep track of the company's finances, telling the judge, "I pour concrete. I'm a construction guy. I don't focus on appraisals and emails."
These children are being brought in away from their families for doing nothing wrong.
These children! The children, everybody. What's going to happen to the children? Beavis and Butthead are adults now, okay? They are not children, Alina, and they are defendants. Now, they're throwing Connie, whatever his name is, the CFO, they're throwing him and Weisselberg and Mazars under the bus. They knew nothing. We see nothing. You know, accountants prepare your taxes based on what you give them. Yeah, they don't make up numbers. You have to give them your numbers.
Clear for takeoff.
Randi Rhodes.
Randi Rhodes. Randi Rhodes. RandiRhodes.com.
It's Thursday, November 2nd, 2023.
There was an Amber Alert in place overnight.
911, what's your emergency?
America's healthcare system is broken, and people are dying.
Welcome to Code WAC, where we shine a light on America's callous healthcare system, how it hurts us, and what we can do about it. I'm your host, Brenda Gazar. This time on Code WAC, we're taking a closer look at what the millions of people being kicked off Medicaid due to the end of COVID protections can do about it, what's being done to help them, and what else can we do to make sure people don't get stranded without health insurance. To find out, we spoke to Loretta Alexander, who recently retired as the Health Policy Director of Arkansas Advocates for Children and Families.
When I was in graduate school, the AMA, American Medical Association, and organizations like that were vehemently against universal health care. Now, fast forward, and the AMA is a proponent of universal health care. So we're coming forward slowly, but we need to speed it up, and we need to fill the gaps and eliminate the barriers to service. I mean, I just feel very strongly that healthcare is a right, and it should be considered a right, not a privilege. We have publicly supported schools in America. There is a law, a public law, that says every child must be provided a free and equal education. That's a federal law. We have a constitutional right to have a public defender or have a lawyer when we go to court. You know, we have roads and bridges and all these other things that are in place that everybody gets access to. So why health care is not on the table, I just don't understand.
Get the full Code WAC story on ProgressiveVoices.com and on the PV app. Catch all our episodes by subscribing to Code WAC wherever you find your podcasts. This podcast is powered by Heal California, a nonprofit.
It's Thursday, November 2nd, 2023.
There was an Amber Alert in place overnight, but no one anticipated this deluge.
Storm Kieran, latest to rapidly intensify before slamming into the UK and France. Human activities are making the earth saltier, and not in a good way. Plus,
today I'm proud to announce new funding that will go directly to rural communities to fix aging critical rural infrastructure like electricity, water, wastewater systems that haven't been replaced in decades.
Biden launches major investments in America's farm country to boost resilience and fight climate change.
All of that major news and more straight ahead from BradBlog.com. I'm Brad Friedman.
And I'm Desi Doyen.
Stand by for 6 minutes of independent green news, politics, analysis, and snarky comment.
The windmills are driving them crazy. They're driving
The whales, I think a little
Rapidly intensifying, this time on a whole other part of the world.
Yes, unfortunately, as we go to air, Storm Kieran is lashing the UK and northern France with hurricane-force winds after undergoing explosive rapid intensification driven by record-warm ocean waters in the North Atlantic. Kieran is the second big storm in a week to slam into the UK. Warm oceans are also intensifying its rainfall, triggering renewed flooding in areas with already saturated ground. Scientists link the ocean heat and unusually warm global temperatures to human-caused climate change.
And they had no idea what was coming because of rapid intensification.
And now the Earth is getting saltier because humanity is messing with the Earth's salt cycle with potentially dangerous consequences. That's according to a first-of-its-kind study this week in the journal Nature. Salts like calcium, magnesium, and regular table salt that are used in agriculture, mining, industry, and road salt treatments all are increasing salt concentrations in places where they don't normally occur. It's contaminating aquifers, corroding lead water pipes, affecting soils, freshwater lakes and rivers, crop production, and even the air. The researchers warn that excess salt is, quote, an existential threat to freshwater supplies across the U.S.
Now we have to be worried about salt.
In better news, this week the Biden Interior Department approved the largest offshore wind project yet for the U.S., 27 miles off the coast of Virginia. It is the fifth massive wind farm cleared to begin construction in U.S. waters and will ultimately power nearly 1 million homes.
Well, have they asked the whales about that?
However, the approval comes amid economic turbulence that's causing wind developers to delay projects along the East Coast. This week, Danish wind power developer Ørsted canceled 2 offshore wind projects off the coast of New Jersey, citing supply chain bottlenecks and high interest rates that are raising costs. The cancellations are a victory for anti-wind energy groups backed by fossil fuel interests that quickly formed to oppose the offshore wind projects and falsely blamed whale deaths on those wind projects.
Their windmills are causing whales to die in numbers never seen before. They're washing up ashore. I saw it this weekend. 3 of them came up. You wouldn't see it once a year. Now they're coming up on a weekly basis. The windmills are driving them crazy.
Federal and independent scientific data indicate that most whale deaths are caused by commercial shipping and fishing gear entanglement.
No, it's the windmills that are driving them batty. Everybody knows it.
In other actions, the administration also overcame decades of drilling industry resistance to begin regulating nearly 500,000 miles of what are known as natural gas gathering pipelines for the first time ever, requiring leak detection and safety measures near residential areas, which the industry is not happy about.
You mean we did not used to inspect them for leaks near houses?
Yep. Finally, President Biden traveled to Minnesota this week to unveil $5 billion in new investments directly in rural America. Funding from the Inflation Reduction Act and the Infrastructure Law will go to replace aging rural water and electric infrastructure, expand high-speed internet, and help farmers fight climate change and diversify by harvesting renewable energy.
We're investing nearly $20 billion to help farmers and ranchers tackle climate crisis through climate-smart agriculture and cover crops, nutrient management, reducing greenhouse gas emissions, while improving overall health of the soil and the water.
Did you hear that, farmers and ranchers? Did you hear who's actually helping you out? For much more on all of these stories and the ones we couldn't get to today, check out our website at greennews.bradblog.com. Find, follow, and share us planet-wide on the Facebooks, Mastodons, and sites still known as Twitter at Green News Report. I'm Brad Friedman.
And I'm Desi Doyen.
And this has been your Green News Report.
Yes.
Mary had a little man. The fall. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon.
I have a dream.
Change has come to America.
Believe me.
Help is on the way.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show.
Turn up your mind.
I want you to listen to Wolf Blitzer. To Hakeem Jeffries on CNN yesterday. Wolf Blitzer, as I understand it, his parents weren't victims in one way or another of the Holocaust, but certainly his family comes out of that background.
What?
But you wouldn't know it. Because the ideology of the left is very attractive. It's very compelling.
Mark Levin is a scuzzball, okay? He always has been. I've known him forever. I think he had a crush on me at one point. But honestly, the idea that he would trash Wolf Blitzer's family as not having been hurt or harmed in the Holocaust one way or another. I don't know if you know this. You know that Wolf Blitzer, I know him too. We all know each other in a weird way, okay? Because all of us elder broadcasters have been around in the same period of time. Some of us actually in the same company, working, together, but far, far, far apart forever, for decades now. Wolf Blitzer, all four of his grandparents, all four of them were killed in the Holocaust. All four of them were taken to camps, and all four of them were executed by the Nazis. Why is Mark Levin, why do they feel the need to say crap like that if Wolf Blitzer asks a difficult question about something that the right-wing Likud party in Israel is doing that is causing blowback for American Jews? Aren't you one, Mark? Let me just show you something. Okay, this is a very brief little snippet of a special that Wolf Blitzer did exploring his history, okay?
That's my cousin, Pepe Dotan. We grew up together in Buffalo. She's here to help me find my mother's roots.
Where the Zilberfuden residence was. What number was it?
Number 12.
Whatever house they had is gone.
Yeah, it's closed.
Together, we found what's left of my grandfather's old factory that produced clay pipes. Not far from that factory was the slave labor camp where my mother, her sister Paula, and two brothers, Mike and Yurik, worked.
But this was the land where the Skarzisko labor camp, Camp A, was.
In this camp, 24,000 Jews came in for labor. Almost 18,000 died here. There was no crematorium here, but they simply burned the bodies. And we're told that they buried the ashes here in this place. So it's conceivable that our grandparents are, their ashes
we have
are
no
here.
idea.
We have no idea, no.
When you look at my mom now, she's 92 years old, you wouldn't realize how courageous she was when she was liberated in 1945 from the slave labor camp. They told all the Jewish workers, you're going to be marching on this death march. My mother knew that if they were on this forced death march, they would die.
This remarkable woman took her siblings and hid in the basement of the factory. And they stayed there for a few days until they were finally liberated by the Russians.
Yeah, he's lying, you know. He made that up. I mean, the people on the right-wing lunatics are lunatics. Right-wing people don't care who they hurt. They don't care who they denigrate. They don't care who they smear. They don't care who they lie about. Because they're takers, man. That's all they do. They take and take and take, and they never give. They never give. They never give back, ever. It's the takers and the makers. And, I mean, this is exactly the kind of government that they dream of in this world now. This is exactly what they're hoping for. Autocrats everywhere as far as the eye can see. People that kill children, people that burn bodies, people that slaughter for the sake of slaughtering, or people who slaughter for the sake of, believing some weird ideology about things will be better for you if you just kill him. It's a very sick, sick party, and it's a global thing. It's not unique to us, okay? It isn't. If you have a guy in Alabama who's never served in the military holding up 89% of the top military appointments in this country because he's waiting for somebody. He's waiting for somebody else to take power so that the military is now loyal to that person when they take power, then you know you're in deep crap. Okay? Something really evil and ugly is afoot. Something is going on. And you know what's crazy is the right wing around the world, and this, you know, I can't explain this to you any better than I've tried to explain to you for a week now. The right wing of this world all are, it's like they know each other, okay? And they all got each other's back. And, you know, the idea that if Russia, listen, you understand why now, right? You understand why Russia didn't attack Ukraine during the Trump administration, right? Did you ever figure that out for yourself? I think you did. I hope you did. It was because Donald Trump was going to give Vladimir Putin Ukraine. He wouldn't have had to fight for it. He wouldn't have had to used up his tanks and used up his shells and used up his ammo to the point where he had to go to Iran to get shells, artillery shells, and ammo for the guns from freaking Iran. But he knew he could go to them and they would give because they already gave him drones. And now, in exchange for giving him drones in his time of need when he wanted to slaughter the Ukrainians because Trump lost, and now, oh, damn, now I got to go take it. All right, that's what I'll do. I'll go take it because Trump lost, right? And so now Iran wants something out of the deal. What does Iran want? Well, first of all, they want Israel. And second, they want to build a drone factory outside of Iran. And Putin says, yeah, come into Russia. I'll give you, and they're going to build thousands and thousands of drones in Russia. The Iranians are. Small world, isn't it? There's a handful of people who are you know how we used to say ill repute? These are prostitutes, okay? These are people of ill repute. These are people who literally sold their souls to the devil. And if you don't believe in the devil, they sold their souls to the evil, that men do. And said, they pledged that they would do this kind of evil as long as the status quo could be disrupted. I don't know if they're chaos lovers or if they're conquerors at heart or if they're just plain evil. Mass murderers, killers. Remember? And when Trump was asked, but isn't Putin a killer? Remember, Bill O'Reilly asked him. Bill O'Reilly said, there's a lot of killers. What do you think? We're so innocent? So he was literally telling his mind, relax about killing ordinary people. It's the price of entry if you want to be a leader. No, if you want to be a right-wing leader. I swear to God, and that is the club that Netanyahu is part of. That is exactly his wheelhouse. That is where he is. The idea that he has been prime minister in Israel almost uninterrupted from 2009 until now, and before that he was prime minister too in 1995. He became the head of this right-wing lunatic party, the Likud party. I think in 93 and in 95 he was elected prime minister, and then he lost. He lost almost immediately after that, right? But back then you had a very lively labor party. You had a very lively two-party system in Israel. You had the center-left, the Labor Party, and you had the right-wing Likud party. But the Likud party was always made up of a lot of paramilitary guys. It was Menachem Begin and Yitzhak Shamir. And for those of you who don't know who they are, that's fine. Just know that they were military dudes who wandered into the, right-wing politics in Israel. Shamir's interesting because he was part of a group that admitted it was a terrorist group and was wanted by the British government before Israel was founded. Anyway. Moving forward, they're a very hardline, violent, to Arab existence party. Sort of like Donald Trump with We Build the Wall. No, that was fraud. Donald Trump with the southern border. No, he never protected it. Well, at least Netanyahu did build his freaking wall. Didn't work, but he built it.
Clear for takeoff. The Bob Cesca Show. Bob Cesca.
The thing that we don't often talk about when we, in the context of the treason that took place on January 6th, is the basic fact, and this is kind of an obvious thing to say, but every single one of those insurrectionists were fooled, were suckered by the most obvious liar in the history of public liars in this country or in human civilization in its entirety.
But it's not just him. He has a huge satellite network of people boosting him.
That's
the thing.
true.
Like, he's a terrible liar, but then you throw in the Hannitys and the Tucker
all the
Carlsons
Fox
and,
News,
and all just like the AM radio, and it's like the message reinforcement juju on the right is strong.
Yeah.
Like they get their talking points off the fax machine from the dead, like, what's his first name? Roger Ailes.
Yeah.
The ghost of Roger Ailes sends the fax every morning with their keywords and talking points, and off they go like little robots. And Trump can do the most stupid inane, like, he can drag a piece of toilet paper on his heel all the way up the stairs to Air Force One, but his fans will never see it. They are completely sealed into their little fascist bubble. And it doesn't matter if he's a good liar.
Right.
Because he's got millions of liars who reinforce him.
Yeah, exactly. Well, this is ultimately the things that caused the insurrection to take place were generated out of Donald Trump's worm-infested brain. So, like, how do I frame myself as the winner of this election? Here are the things I'm going to make up. And then all of these people went, well, that sounds about right. Let's go with that.
God damn it.
And so it's no wonder that a lot of them will be voting
Those
for
are the
someone
people
like
that scare me. Like, 'cause, like 10 years ago, they were your friends.
Right.
And then suddenly, the pandemic they snapped.
Yeah,
And they went, like, it's...
Bob Cesca.
It's the Bob Cesca Show. New episodes every Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, everywhere you get your podcasts, and at bobcescashow.com.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1909. That was the day members of the industrial workers of the world began a free speech fight in Spokane, Washington. Wobblies often intersected seasonal workers through street corner soapboxing. Many towns and cities worked to resist IWW organizing efforts by passing ordinances against such rallies. Wobblies challenged these repressive tactics. They would descend on a town or city in great numbers, forcing mass arrests that overwhelmed local authorities and judicial systems. At Spokane, the organizing campaign began a year earlier. Wobblies mobilized against local employment agencies that charged workers fees for jobs that didn't exist. The campaign was so popular that the IWW was able to establish a union hall, hold meetings and lectures, and establish a newspaper. The Spokane City Council quickly passed an ordinance against street corner rallies. When Wobblies learned that religious groups were exempt from the restrictive ordinance, they announced November 2nd as Free Speech Day in Spokane. They put out the call, wanted men to fill the jails of Spokane. By the end of the month, as many as 500 had been arrested. The War Department even offered up nearby Fort Wright to handle the glut of prisoners. A young Elizabeth Gurley Flynn arrived in Spokane to soapbox. Efforts to arrest her were briefly frustrated after she chained herself to a nearby lamppost. Flynn made good use of her time in jail. She reported on appalling prison conditions and accused the local sheriff of operating a brothel out of the women's prison section. The free speech fight gained nationwide attention and enjoyed wide public support.
So is it right?
I watched it on TV.
All things Randi at RandiRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
We're focused on setting the conditions for a durable and sustainable peace and security. The United States continues to believe that the best viable path, indeed the only path, is through a two-state solution. That's the only guarantor of a secure Jewish and democratic Israel, the only guarantor of Palestinians realizing their legitimate right to live in a state of their own, enjoying equal measures of security, freedom, opportunity, and dignity. The only way to end a cycle of violence once and for all. And it's precisely now, in the darkest moments, that we have to fight hardest to preserve a path of stability, of security, of opportunity, of integration, of prosperity, and of peace. Not tomorrow, not after the war, but today.
And let me tell you, as hard as the center right or the center left or the progressive left or anybody in labor or anybody in a progressive or anybody in a democratic posture would fight for a two-state solution, that's how hard the right wing fights against it. And Benjamin Netanyahu's entire life has been dedicated to stopping something called the Oslo Accords, stopping the two-state solution, to the point where, this is what I was telling you before, I just want to close this loop, close this circle. In 1993, okay, when Benjamin Netanyahu became the head of this right-wing lunatic Likud party, okay, he is an American educated, lived here in the United States of America, grew up in Philadelphia. He was a consultant for Boston Consulting Group. I mean, he's friends with Mitt Romney. You understand? Okay, this is as an American person as you could get. But right-wing American version of right-wing hatred, right-wing ideology, okay? He is super freaking radical. And that's saying something when I tell you that the other two people I named who were part of the Likud party prior to him becoming prime minister came from, the paramilitary groups in Israel, okay? So he is even more radical than they are. And the thing that radicalizes him, the thing that makes him go back there, the thing that he opposes like virulently, like a virus, okay, is the Oslo Accords. Yeah, the two-state solution that Bill Clinton negotiated. And so he starts leading all these marches where people are calling for Yitzhak Rabin, the prime minister who entered into the Oslo Accords. They start calling for his assassination on the right, from his own people, Rabin's own people, but people in opposition to him in a political sense, right? And so Netanyahu is leading these marches where people are calling for Rabin's head on a platter, but seriously to have him killed, right? And he's actually approached by the Israeli intelligence services who say, you need to pipe down. You need to turn your rhetoric down because something really bad is going to happen. We see the security risk coming. It's kind of like Christopher Wray just testified this week about rampant, rabid anti-Semitism sweeping the nation here, right? There's always fallout from this kind of talk. There's always fallout from this kind of agitation, from this kind of illegitimate posture, where you need to take, not build. You need to break, not build. You need to take, not make, right? Always. It's so easy to break things. It's so hard to build things. Well, Eric Trump would know that because, he's a builder, everybody. He's a concrete guy. Concrete like, this boy's life, maybe. I'm from concrete. I'm a concrete man. Remember that?
De Niro, right?
Yeah. One of the greatest sleeper roles De Niro ever did. That is a freaking amazing. That's Leonardo DiCaprio and De Niro. Oh, and somebody look it up real quick and tell me who the lead was, because she's amazing. And how I'm blanking out on her name is just, it's a sin. It's a Shonda, I tell you.
Are you referring to Ellen Barkin?
Yes. Ellen Barkin, who Susan Sarandon introduced us once at a party. Just saying. Oh, I just hurt my back dropping that name and picking it up. Oh, okay. But anyway, so Netanyahu was agitating for Rabin to be killed. And guess what happened, everybody? Guess what? Yes, a right-wing assassin actually killed Rabin. Killed him, assassinated him. Which led to an election. And that's how we got Shimon Peres. But he was a Labor Party dude, okay? And, Netanyahu is still motivated by killing peace. That is his entire reason for living. That is his entire reason for being Netanyahu, okay? Killing the Oslo Accords, literally preventing a two-state solution, literally taking away the ability for this sliver of land to live peacefully with each other, which is what the majority of people there want. It is. You'd never know it. You'd never know it from this news coverage. But that's what he's known for. That's who he is. That's what he does, We had, our chance here, too. We had our chance to do everything. And we did, Bill Clinton showed up for it. Two-state solution, actually, I remember that. I thought it was, and Egypt, too, when the peace was being made with Egypt, some right-wing freaking Egypt killed Anwar Sadat. Killed him, too. His own people. Why? Well, because these, upstart groups, it's very profitable hate. Very, very profitable. Yasser Arafat is also equally responsible for no peace in the Middle East. Why? Because he was presented with an opportunity to make the peace, but he was making money being, a PLO leader. Just like now, you got this guy Abbas in the West Bank. And he's as corrupt as can be. He's an old man, but he's corrupt as can be. And, this is why Netanyahu lets him, be. Because he goes in there with his right-wing extremists, religious extremists. And they build these settlements. They kick people out of their houses. They shoot people now, the right wing of Israel. They go into the West Bank, and they literally shoot people. If there was an apartheid thing going on, it would be there in the West Bank. And the PLO is there, letting it happen. Like someone's greasing them to turn their back on their own people. And you know what? The people there know it. They know it. That's how people like Hamas actually win elections. That's how. And then you never have another election because they're right-wing lunatics. They're autocrats. They're terrorists. But if we could actually understand that the right wing around this world, they all hang with each other. They all support each other. And it's going to be to every living thing's detriment that we didn't orient ourselves, that we weren't familiar with who they are and what they've done and what they will continue to do. This is Putin. This is Netanyahu. This is Trump. This is the Ayatollah. This is Assad in Syria.
Clear for takeoff. Randi Rhodes. Randi Rhodes. Randi Rhodes. RandiRhodes.com.
This is Stephanie Miller, and here's what you missed. At some point, the unhinged animosity toward Israel, you write, the violent anti-Semitism against Jews, the irrational anger at the Biden strategy in Gaza will provoke some individual or small self-starting group to carry out an act of lethal armed terrorism in solidarity with Hamas. This will instantly destroy all pro-Palestinian sympathy in the USA and empower white supremacist politicians to enact much, much worse policy against Muslims than after 9/11. Mark my words. Bookmark this post. I hope I'm wrong. And what did you think when Christopher Wray said almost exactly what you're saying, the heightened threat level in the United States because of Hamas?
The funny thing is that in the counterterrorism world, we're feeling this. We're feeling this. And for Christopher Wray to come out and say that within 24 hours, the exact same thing that everyone is discussing within our little community, is that the environment is getting very hot. It's gotten hot before. Right. We know that with with Elon Musk buying Twitter, we had 200-300% increase in threats against Jews and anti-Semitism. But just since the October 7th massacre in Israel, and I have to remind everybody that attack was where they mass murdered individually, one by one, captured, zip-tied, shot in the back of the head, decapitated with a hose, set fire in the house. Entire families, 1,400 people, weren't killed by accident. They were executed summarily. Since that time, we have determined there is a 400% increase in violence or threats of violence against Jews in the United States by other people in the United States.
Hear all this and more on the next Stephanie Miller Show.
What is America at our best? A beacon of hope for the oppressed. The strength to stand with those who love liberty and respect human dignity. The courage to oppose murderous tyrants. Some question if America's greatness is only our history, not our future. But in a dangerous and changing world, President Joe Biden reminds the world what it means to be an American. That America is great when we are good. While air raid sirens blared, President Biden stood side by side with a democracy under attack. He's brought the freedom-loving world together to once again unite against a monstrous tyranny of darkness. We are Americans. Joe Biden is our president. We stand with freedom. We stand with Ukraine.
Which is the greenest state in America? You might think California or maybe Oregon. But go 3,000 miles east, and you'll come upon the physical beauty and ecological vitality of the Green Mountain State, Vermont. Indeed, its very name is derived from the French term for green mountains, Vermonts. And now, Vermont's green ethic is being advanced in a very innovative way by perhaps the least likely source, the state's biggest electric utility. These outfits are usually rank profiteers, with their only green concern being the extraction of more dollar bills from consumers. But, says Mary McClure, CEO of Green Mountain Power, call us the unutility. She is flipping the industry model. Instead of having thousands of customers hooked on a system of massive, centralized, increasingly expensive, and unreliable power plants, GMP is decentralizing.
Don't give up. Don't give up. What's true?
Call in, connect. To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844. 561-270-3844.
To not understand that Israel's enemies are Ukraine's enemies, that Hamas has met with Putin, that Iran has drones in Ukraine right now that they've given to Russia. All of this is part of a global fight for democracy and democratic priorities. And I think, furthermore, it also displays a lack of understanding of how, when you are fighting a counterinsurgency, you've really got to make sure you are taking care of the civilians. Our generals during Iraq and Afghanistan spent an inordinate amount of time worrying about how to get power to populations, how to get food and water to populations. And so the humanitarian relief part of this package is critical as well.
That's Mikey Sherrill. She's military. Honestly, the idea that the right wing will actually do anything in the right way at all ever, or that they stand for peace or peaceful solutions or diplomacy or any of those things, or humanitarian aid, or housing the unhoused, or protecting children, or feeding children, or no, fetuses. Yes, fetuses. Yes, of course. Children, no. Not even in the United States, no. Why? The Children's Health Insurance Program that Hillary Clinton... Oh, please, Hillary. She smells like sulfur. Children. She wanted to insure children so they could go to the doctor. What kind of a fiend is she? Fetuses. Not children. They are very sick and twisted people. They are really ideologically bent. They're twisted in their reality. They're twisted in their own self-importance. And they're entrusted with some of the biggest arsenals the world has ever manufactured. And that is what is frightening. And now you can see why. Not that you were so concerned about anything that was going on in Ukraine when they were encircling Bakhmut and killing, children and women and raping them as a tool of war. This is so Russian, and the starvation and the turning the heat off in the middle of the winter. Yeah, everybody's moved on now to a new right-wing atrocity, except this one's just, I don't know. I mean, the reason why this is so interesting, the reason why we couldn't support Ukraine, according to the right wing, was that they were Nazis, right? Ukraine was full of Nazis. And here you have the extermination of a people that Benjamin Netanyahu just, has fantasies about. Not that, America will let him do it. Not that even Saudi Arabia will let them do it. They won't, because their street gets inflamed. Do you understand, But this is what he goes to sleep, dreaming about or hoping to dream about. And they don't think that, oh, never mind. You know where I'm going. All right. Jacob in Wisconsin.
Hi, Randy.
Hey.
Hi, first time, long time.
Oh, really?
That felt good.
That's what I live for on Friday.
Yeah. Well, I want to say, first of all, thank you so much for keeping us sane. I mean, especially right now, I feel like this is such a complex issue, what's happening in Israel and Palestine. And
you know what? It's really not that bad of a thing to wrap your brain around. It really has to do with one person's wish to never have peace and to stay in power because there is no peace, and only he can, keep them safe at night, when obviously he can't.
Yeah, but I think you're, like what you said, that all these right-wing people around the world know each other and have each other's back is so true. Those same forces are kind of messing up our country. I'm sick of it.
Exactly. Thank you. You're finally putting it all. It's just connecting some very right-wing dots, okay? And that is what is going on. And it will never be any different with them. Never. And if you don't stop Putin in Ukraine, just saying, okay, Putin and Iran, they are doing this in Israel now. But if you don't stop him in Ukraine, do you really think he's going to stop there? Oh, no. Oh, hell no. See, Donald Trump was going to destroy NATO for him. And so he wouldn't have even had to fire a shot. They would have just given him, Donald Trump would have given him Ukraine. And the Ukrainians would have risen up and they would have fought, but he figured that once it was his, he could say they want to be with Russia, just like, Trump did about Crimea. Same thing's going on here. Same thing. They just take what they want. And it's never going to be enough, ever.
Yeah, and I just don't know where it's going. I don't know what the end game is for people like Tuberville or Putin or anything.
Okay, so the thing with us is, okay, we are still a democracy, and while forces are trying to rip Democrats apart so that either they will stay home or they will vote for somebody other than, Biden because, they want to protest something. They don't like what they see happening in Israel. They didn't care about Ukraine, but they do care about this for some weird-ass reason. Why one and not the other? I guess the anti-Semitism is just so easy to come by. But it depends on who we actually, vote for. It depends on the outcome of this next election, which is it's almost a year to the day. Okay, it's Tuesday, November 5th, 2023, or 2024 is the election. And today,
isn't that scary?
It's scary. Today is November 3rd, 2023. So it's a year and 2 days away. And the result of that will determine what the hell happens to us. And how it resolves itself.
Yeah. It is scary. And I think there's a few things. One, I don't know why we keep seeing polls about who's going to win versus Biden when we don't even have a nominee. I kind of like a year out, but I think it's sad because I think it's sort of spreading. I think Trump didn't happen in a vacuum. Like the right wing has been building up to someone as bad as that for a while, but now I feel like he unleashed so much around the world that people feel like they can just be awful and nobody cares.
Yeah, we are in that period. We're definitely, yeah, I do know. And we are definitely in a period of rage monkeys. We're in a period of, hating a guy who is responsible for one of the greatest economies we've ever seen. I mean, we have 4.9% GDP, 5% growth, 5% growth. You had resolutions to almost every strike in favor of the workers. Okay, you got 10 million open jobs. Unemployment is at a historical low, and it has been for quarter after quarter after quarter after quarter. And Biden gets 35% approval on the economy. Doesn't that tell you? Doesn't that tell you that the information people, the people that are pumping, information into the atmosphere, are negative about Biden to the point where people believe it?
Yeah, and it also says something about people not paying attention, because they should be able to know that and look up what he's done. He's done a lot.
I know, but people get their news off of social media now, and social media is trending for the right. Social media is, Elon Musk is talking about giving Starlink to Hamas. Starlink to a terrorist organization. He was talking about turning it off for Ukraine and giving it to a terrorist organization.
Clear for takeoff. Randi Rhodes. Randi Rhodes. Randi Rhodes. RandiRhodes.com.
Donald, you're broke and busted. A fraud, a con, a low-rent rip-off artist. We've always known it. So have you. Now America knows it. The courts are shutting down your crooked shell companies in New York. Bank fraud, insurance fraud. You know those are crimes, right, Donald? They're dissolving the whole Trump Organization scam right from under you. Bankruptcy won't save you this time. You'll have to sell off everything. You might even lose control of that dump Trump tower. No one will lend you money, Donald. They won't even let you hand it over to Junior or Eric. Never mind Ivanka. She hates you. Everything you ever built was built on a lie. You were never rich, never successful. New York is laughing at you. Always has, always will. And now everyone knows it. Broke, busted, the loser in chief.
Munich, September 30th, 1938. Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain abandons the people of Czechoslovakia to the whims of a monstrous dictator named Adolf Hitler. The war that followed shook the earth to its very foundations. Washington, September 30th, 2023. Republicans demand that America abandon the people of Ukraine to the whims of a monstrous dictator named Vladimir Putin. History has taught us the cost of appeasement, destruction, oppression, death. For decades, the Republican Party fought the agents of tyranny.
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
That all ended when their party leaders sounded more like a dictator than a president who benefited from Russian interference and returned the favor with support of Russian oppression.
It's great to be with you.
President Joe Biden has stood with the Ukrainian people in their fight against Putin, upholding the ideals that America was founded on, ideals that so many fought and died to defend. The choice in 2024 is no longer between two political parties. It's between freedom and oppression, between war and peace. The stakes have never been higher. The cost has never been greater. The choice has never been more clear. It's us or them.
For 4 long years, Donald Trump disgraced America, laughing with mass-murdering dictators, Vladimir Putin's puppet.
You know, the people of Crimea, from what I've heard, would rather be with Russia than where they were.
The world laughed at us.
You know, Hezbollah is very smart. They're all very smart.
No more.
The people of this nation have spoken. And at this hour, my friends, democracy has prevailed.
Today, America once again leads the free world. A respected leader, steady, determined, who knows America is great because America is good.
We stand with Israel today, tomorrow, as we always have.
Under President Biden, our friends are stronger, our enemies weaker.
This is not about party or politics. This is about the security of the United States of America.
A strong economy at home, a respected America abroad. President Joe Biden, an American president.
Excited to see members of Congress incite violence against law enforcement, enjoy armed insurrections, and the big lie? If so, thank a MAGA Republican. If you think election results should only count when Republicans win, thank a MAGA Republican today. The Lincoln Project is responsible for the content of this advertising.
For Progressive Voices, I'm John Sinton, and this is a turning point. Today, heroes and zeros. Let's start with a hero. The late, great Congresswoman Pat Schroeder, the Democrat from reality, knew where she was and what she was dealing with when she famously said, "Please don't tell my mother I'm in Congress. She thinks I'm a prostitute." How about zeros? Well, at the most dangerous inflection point of the post-World War II order, we point to the long leaderless House of Representatives that stalled and was unable to address the nation's most pressing business. For a moment, it seemed like the squishes, or moderate Republicans, would hold the line against promoting an election denier, but no dice.
Fatality. This is the Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
All right. I'm just looking up at the Chiron on the TV. I got Nicole Wallace up there. God, she's freaking gorgeous, okay? Just my brother-in-law is in love with Nicole. In love with you, Nicole. Larry, he's in love with Nicole. But I'm just looking at the Chiron underneath, and it says judge expands gag order to include Trump's lawyers now. Because Chris Kise, I don't know if you know who he is. Chris Kise was like our Solicitor General in Florida. He was responsible for arguing in front of the Florida State Supreme Court. He's the solicitor. Anyway, he's now Donald Trump's lawyer. He also went after the Judge Engoron. He has a staffer. He's got a clerk that sits next to him and watches the proceedings. And it's a bench trial. You know, there's no jury. And they've already found the Trump organization liable for fraud, right? Because, listen, the easiest piece of it is to understand that, you know, the children who are being dragged in here and they haven't done anything, signed off on a valuation of the triplex that is Donald Trump's home in Trump Tower, saying it was 30,000 square feet when it was really a third of that. It was 10,000 square feet. And everyone and anyone who's ever worked in real estate, or anyone and everyone who's ever lived in Manhattan, knows that everything is sold price per square foot, and that the difference between 10,000 square feet, which is humongous to begin with, that is a mansion in Manhattan, and 30,000 feet, which is like a freaking whole townhouse sort of a thing, is exponentially different, okay, the value. And they signed off on it because, you know, he's pouring concrete. He had no time to actually check and see that Daddy's apartment was really, listed as 30,000 square feet, which would make it exponentially more valuable than if it was at 10,000 square feet, which also is a mansion. Oh, God, they're so sick and they're so. But anyway, Chris Kise apparently went off on this girl, Allison, who is the clerk for Judge Engoron. And Engoron said, you go one step. What is with you and your misogynistic attacks on my staff? Your client, I had to gag him twice already about talking about my staff. Don't make me gag you too. Well, he wouldn't stop, so he gagged him too. And that's how the trial ended this Friday. To be continued next week with Donald Trump taking the stand in his own defense. It's just the damages portion, okay? That's all that's left is to figure out how much the lying cost banks and how much the lying cost New York taxpayers. That's it. That's all that's left to do. And that's what this is about. Because they've already adjudicated Donald Trump's organization as being fraudulent. They already found him liable for fraud. He can't even be, the charity thing. He's already been found liable for fraud. He can't be on the board of directors of a charity. None of his family members can, because they defrauded people in the Trump charity. And then the other thing is okay, so they can't do a charity. Oh, the We Build the Wall, that was fraud too. Oh, and the Trump University. He had to pay $25 million in restitution to the people that attended Trump University who he defrauded into believing that it was a real thing. It was a real university. So, I mean, let's make him president. Let's give him, all the generals that'll be loyal to him. And, let's get it on. Let's get violent. Let's do it, because that's what will happen. By the way, I just want to wish a happy anniversary to a friend of the Randi Rhodes Show, the 38th governor of Minnesota, Jesse Ventura. Hi, Jesse. Mwah, love you. Today is the anniversary of his election to be the 38th governor of the state of Minnesota back in 1999, when I was really cute.
He calls to just kind of to chat and drop info bombs more than you think. And he said he watches all the time. Big fan of the show.
I know.
Jesse, we'd love to have you on air more. And everybody else, call in.
Go talk to Brett. I didn't say it. He did. All right. Clay in Mississippi.
Hi, Randy.
Hi, Clay.
So, just real quick before I get on my point, I guess, why don't we call Mike Johnson Taliban Mike? And just, start calling him that.
Why? Oh, because he's into his Sharia law type mind?
Yeah, exactly. He's all about that.
He is all about
controlling
that.
everybody based on what he believes.
I'm telling you, there's religious extremism in every nook and cranny of this world. It's just a whole lot more when it comes to
crazy.
When it comes to Christianity and Islam than there is when it comes to any other. You don't see radical Mormons. I don't see them very often.
No. Not too many radical Scientologists, except maybe Tom
I don't
Cruise,
know.
But
He jumps on couches and stuff, screaming he's in love.
Right. Well, he's all right, I guess. But so I was calling because I was thinking about when you go and vote. I know that I don't know all the candidates that are on the ballot, and a lot of people don't know who's on the ballot. You go in there and there's a ballot, and there's people you've never heard of, and if there are two people you've never heard of on a Democratic, for instance, thing, which one do you pick? Which one has the better chance of defeating a Republican? So I thought, well, what if each candidate can put a poster up of what they are for? What is their platform in the voting facilities? What do you think about that? So that people could be informed as they vote.
I think the rule is something like 50 yards away for politics.
Right. That's for those signs, but I just wondered if there was some way to, this would be informative, not.
I think, Clay, that's what they call the internet.
Right.
But,
I think you could do it. Place.
You can do it on your phone.
That's exactly what I told Clay. As I'm standing at the ballot, I just Google every name on the ballot.
Yeah, everybody does. People do it all the time because, you think you've done your research, you think you're good to go, then you get there and there's judges, okay?
Yeah.
And the judges don't have party affiliation, and so you're like, well, who do I choose, And so you look it up on your phone. So that's kind of what people do. Wendy in Tennessee.
Yes. Hey, Randy, first time. So I heard your concern that you expressed about the younger generation siding with the Palestinian cause, and I sat down with my kid last night. They're 26. They go by them, they, them. And I asked what their generation is saying on social media, and my kid was just sobbing. And they said, yes, we're for Palestine. We're not for Hamas, but we want to free Palestine. And I said,
but Palestine needs. I'm sorry. Palestine needs to be freed from Hamas.
Yes, on all sides, for sure. And what my kid was saying is they're afraid that a lot of their generation has not had really good access to good education that tells you how to think critically. So they said, I think a lot of my friends are very black and white thinkers, and it's kind of go this and not that, and that ultimately there's a lot of gray in the world in general, and certainly in war. And we talked around it, and we talked about how bad governments make choices for their people, and the people get caught in the middle. And they really came away from that, I think, thinking more deeply about the whole story. But I know you're concerned that a lot of them are just sort of jumping on the bandwagons. And I think, these are kids who've watched school shootings go unaddressed. These are kids who have been dealing with climate change and feeling like nobody's taking care of it. And so they're seeing another group of people they're seeing that are not being listened to and heard. And they're just basically blindly falling into an empathy as if it's a simple story.
Well, it's really not that complicated. So the idea that they are making it as oppressor and oppressed could, actually, because you're saying something very important. There is no critical thinking taught anymore. And so it's fallen into like a group. Either you're in the oppressed group or you're the oppressor, right? I get that. I understand that. But the idea that the oppressor is Hamas is being lost here. And that's not complicated. It's just not. And that Hamas is supported by, with dollars and every other kind of support that you would want, by Benjamin Netanyahu. That is a fact. And so if if they just wanted to, be, black and white, oppressed and oppressor, it is the right-wing lunatics. It's the right-wing religious freaks. It is the right-wing business freaks who don't want to do anything about climate change, who don't want to do anything about radicalization in religion, who don't want to do anything about oppressors. That's where it is. That's where the problem is. When you... I
hear you.
Yeah, and so we have to just keep on talking to them, keep on talking to them, keep on talking to them, because...
Absolutely.
Yeah, they're
don't give up on those kids. They're open to being, to being reasonable. Yeah, and talk to.
Yeah, well,
valued.
That's kind of what I do. I know. And while I'm sitting here spitting out a spleen each and every day, trying to explain that the right-wing business crowd is the right-wing religious crowd, is the right-wing oppressor crowd, and that you'll never find a right-wing person that isn't willing to support a terrorist organization. It will never happen. I'm doing it because I know our kids need to have an explanation.
Clear for takeoff. Randi Rhodes. Randi Rhodes. Randi Rhodes. RandiRhodes.com.
It's Thursday, November 2nd, 2023.
There was an amber alert in place overnight, but no one anticipated this deluge.
Storm Ciarán, latest to rapidly intensify before slamming into the UK and France. Human activities are making the earth saltier, and not in a good way. Plus,
today I'm proud to announce new funding that will go directly to rural communities to fix aging critical rural infrastructure like electricity, water, wastewater systems that haven't been replaced in decades.
Biden launches major investments in America's farm country to boost resilience and fight climate change.
All of that major news and more straight ahead from BradBlog.com. I'm Brad Friedman.
And I'm Desi Doyen.
Stand by for 6 minutes of independent green news, politics, analysis, and snarky comment.
The windmills are driving them crazy. They're driving the whales, I think.
Rapidly intensifying, this time on a whole other part of the world.
Yes, unfortunately, as we go to air, Storm Ciarán is lashing the UK and northern France with hurricane-force winds after undergoing explosive rapid intensification driven by record-warm ocean waters in the North Atlantic. Ciarán is the second big storm in a week to slam into the UK. Warm oceans are also intensifying its rainfall, triggering renewed flooding in areas with already saturated ground. Scientists link the ocean heat and unusually warm global temperatures to human-caused climate change.
And they had no idea what was coming because of rapid intensification.
And now the Earth is getting saltier because humanity is messing with the Earth's salt cycle with potentially dangerous consequences. That's according to a first-of-its-kind study this week in the journal Nature. Salts like calcium, magnesium, and regular table salt that are used in agriculture, mining, industry, and road salt treatments all are increasing salt concentrations in places where they don't normally occur. It's contaminating aquifers, corroding lead water pipes, affecting soils, freshwater lakes and rivers, crop production, and even the air. The researchers warn that excess salt is, quote, an existential threat to freshwater supply.